Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday School with the Diocese of New Jersey. My name is Ann Delgado, this is my son Matthew, and we are really excited to spend this time with you each week. If you're watching our sessions on YouTube channel, you can find that on the Diocese of New Jersey's YouTube channel and watch these videos anytime with your family. Or you can join us on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. on Zoom for our in-person sessions, Sunday school sessions. So you can find that registration information on the Diocese of New Jersey's website. But however you use these sessions, we are really blessed to be able to spend this time together. So we are going to get started with our regular pattern. And so we've got a really exciting Bible story today. We've got some things to talk about. We've got a Faith at Home activity, but we always start with our opening prayer. So I'll say a line and you guys can repeat it back to me. You ready? Mm-hmm. Heavenly Father, hear our prayer.
Heavenly Father, hear our prayer.
Keep us in your loving care.
Keep us in your loving care.
Guide us through the coming day.
Guide us through the coming day.
In our work and in our play.
In our work and in our play.
Keep us pure and sweet and true.
Keep us pure and sweet and true.
In everything we say and do.
In everything we say and do.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, as usual, because it is Advent, I am really excited about today's lesson. And guess what? Do you know which week of Advent this is?
The fourth.
Fourth, that's right. This Sunday is the fourth and final week of Advent, our season of anticipation, of hope, of preparation for the arrival of Jesus, which is now right around the corner for us. And this is one of my favorite times of year. So I get really excited both to tell these stories that we know, but also to share some of the Faith at Home activities that we've been doing this month. So that will be something neat to do today. So in this instance, today's story is super exciting because it is the story. It's the Nativity Story, and that means it is the story of someone's birth. A nativity, native story is the story of someone's birth. And in this instance, whose birth are we talking about?
Baby Jesus.
That's right, baby Jesus. It is Jesus's nativity story, and he's going to come to earth as a little baby in a stable in Bethlehem. This is the story that we get to tell each year, and it is such a special story. But guess what? Each of you also have a nativity story, right?
Yeah.
Because you all were born too, so technically we all have nativity stories. So that's kind of a fun thing to remember. But in our story today, we have so much to talk about. And I know this is a story that so many of us are really familiar with, but there's just really a lot for us to talk about. So that'll be fun today. So in this story, for whatever reason, known to himself, God sent Jesus into the world by way of a humble family. And we talked about that the last couple of weeks. All right, and we'll mention it again after the story. He was not born in a castle. All right, Jesus wasn't even born at home, let alone a hospital, which wasn't really a thing back then. So we'll read today about how Jesus's parents, Mary and Joseph, had to travel to Joseph's ancestral home. And while they were there, Jesus was born. There were no places for travelers to stay in those days, and relatives were usually showed hospitality, by extended family members. But in this instance, there was just no room. All right, so that's another part of the story we're going to talk about today. No room. All right, so as I read this very familiar story, I want you to think about how you receive the good news of Jesus' birth. We've heard the story before, but how are you hearing it today? All right, so we are going to read the story. Jesus is born. It's from the Gospel of Luke, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 20, if you're reading in the Big Bible. All right. Here we go. We have to go to Bethlehem, Joseph told Mary. Emperor Augustus has ordered that all of the people need to be counted. But Joseph, Mary said, what about our baby? He will be born soon. We'll go slowly, Mary. Bethlehem will be crowded, so we need to leave now. So Mary and Joseph journeyed to Bethlehem, the city of David, to be counted along with all of the other people. It was cold when they arrived. Joseph knocked on many doors looking for a room, but everyone said no. Finally, an innkeeper answered his door. "I have no room," the innkeeper said, "but you can stay in the little stable in the back. It's warm and the hay is fresh." "Joseph," Mary said, "I think it's time for the baby to be born." That night, Mary gave birth to Jesus. She laid him in a manger. The animals kept them warm as they waited for morning. Outside of Bethlehem, shepherds watched their sheep on the hills. Suddenly, an angel appeared. The shepherds looked up at the bright night sky. "Don't be afraid," the angel said. "I bring wonderful news. The child God promised was born tonight." The shepherds listened in amazement. The twinkling stars seemed to echo each of the angel's words. The angel continued, "Go to Bethlehem. You will find the child lying in a bed of hay." Suddenly, many angels filled the heavens. They sang together, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace to all people on earth." "Let's hurry," one shepherd said. "The angel said the child was born tonight." "But what about the sheep?" another shepherd asked. "Let the angels watch them," the youngest shepherd said. "Yes, let the angels watch them." The shepherds happily hurried into Bethlehem. The angel was right. The shepherds found the baby Jesus asleep on a bed of hay. They told Mary and Joseph all that the angel had said. The angel said the baby is the Messiah, the promised one. "He is the one we have waited for," they explained. "But this is a stable. Would God be born here among the animals?" "Moo," said the cow. "Baa," said the sheep. "Coo, coo," said the dove. Mary smiled. She knew that Jesus was Emmanuel, God with us. Later, the shepherds returned to their sheep, praising God for all they had seen and heard. Jesus was born. All right. So that was a wonderful story, and some of you might be even getting to tell that story yourselves if you have pageants going on at church. I know our church is just about to do a virtual pageant this year on Zoom, so it's so exciting to be able to participate in that story as well. All right, so there is a lot to talk about, and the neat thing about Christmas is this is our Christmas story. We're telling it on the last week of Advent, but 12 whole days to talk about this story. So there's a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. So feel free to pause this video anytime if you want to continue the conversation at home, and you can just keep going whenever you're ready. All right, so here's first of all, right? This is a story that most of us know. We tell it every year, and probably more often than that in between. But each time we hear it, each Christmas, we hear something different in this story, something that connects to our lives in a new way. All right? So if you're hearing this story, think about what part of the story do you look forward to every year? What's your favorite part, the part you anticipate? This is a season of anticipation. What's the favorite part you like to hear every year?
When the three wise men are
Oh,
traveling.
the three wise men, that's right. And we actually have a special day for them, and we'll be talking about them in January.
I also like the shepherds.
I like the shepherds too, because we have a storybook that talks about the shepherds, and it's got this beautiful picture of the angels in the night sky, in that really dark sky. And when I was your age, that really caught my imagination. And so I like the ideas of the shepherds just minding their own business out in the field, and all of a sudden, the sky just transforms, and so do their lives transform. All right, so that's one of my favorites. But think about at home. What is some of the most favorite parts of the story? All right, maybe it's the journey, maybe it's the shepherds, or the angel, or the stars, Mary and Joseph. There's a lot going on. So think about what part you look forward to. And then, what did you maybe hear in the story just now that you might not have heard before? I mean, you knew it was part of the story, but it didn't connect. It didn't impact you before. Did you hear anything new today?
No.
that you looked at with fresh eyes?
It sounded mostly the same.
Sounded mostly the same? Mm-hmm. All right. I'll tell you what struck me today. And that is when, once again, the angel arrived to the shepherds. What was the first words out of the angel's mouth? Do you remember?
Do not be afraid.
Do not be afraid. And I noticed that because as we've been going through together for Sunday school and telling these stories, that is something that messengers have said over and over again to God's people. When messengers appear, when the word of God, is sort of shared and spoken, sometimes we are afraid. All right. And this is the angel's message. Do not be afraid. And it's been that way all year. But again, this sort of in a familiar story, we're hear that yet again. So if we haven't really heard it, I know sometimes, we can hear it and not hear it. So that was one of the things that I really heard because of all the discussions and the stories we've talked about all year long. All right, so think about your favorite parts and also maybe something that you heard or, connected with differently today. All right, so that's the beauty of these Bible stories is even though, we tell them and we repeat them, there's always a fresh message for us. All right, even in this story, which we know so well. So here's another thing to think about. If you knew nothing about Jesus, all right, you hadn't heard the stories that we've heard, you knew nothing about Jesus, you just were waiting for a Messiah, for the Son of God, and you heard that God's Son was going to come and live on the earth for a while, what would you expect?
A king.
A king.
And he'd be like a big deal.
Yeah, a king who'd be a big deal. All right, and we know Jesus is a king who is a big deal, but he didn't look necessarily like that, right? Looks can be deceiving, certainly. So I think it's a safe bet that most people thinking about the Son of God here on earth are probably expecting a king or maybe a warrior, right? Someone really strong and powerful. They're not necessarily thinking about a tiny baby born in amongst animals, right? In a sort of small town to very humble and poor parents. That is really unexpected. Okay, there were no parties. This isn't a fancy story in any way. All right, no parades. The first visitors that come to see this little baby are shepherds coming straight from the fields. All right, and I don't know if you guys, New Jersey is, some of you might come from a rural background, but if you're familiar with barn animals or field animals, they have sometimes a particular smell. And if you spend a lot of time with those animals, you are going to also have that particular smell. So, I'm just trying to sort of create an atmosphere. So these shepherds, rough men, used to working outside, maybe didn't have the nicest, most polished manners of all time, smelling like the sheep they spend so much time looking after. These are the first people to come and worship God's Son. All right, this is all really unexpected. So what does this tell us about God? All of these unexpected things. What does that tell us about how God works?
He doesn't care how rich or famous you are.
Right. Rich and famous is not really a concept for God. That's not how he measures anything. Right? What does God care about?
Your heart.
Your heart. Right? Love for God, love for your neighbor. Those are the commandments we come back to time and time again. All right? So think about that. Think about how the story from the very beginning, Jesus is not matching perhaps our expectations, but in many ways, he is so much more than what we ever could possibly have expected. All right, so both God and Jesus are revealed in this story for us to sort of learn about and get to know and ultimately cherish, right? So that's something to think about, what this story tells us about God. And how much he loves his people. He didn't come to show off. He didn't come to be, sort of in the most powerful person in the room, although he certainly always is. He came to live amongst us because he loves us so much. So he came to share that life, right? And that is God incarnate in this story. Incarnate means God is here as a person, an actual person, right? Jesus isn't pretending to be a person. He is a person, and he is still God. That is super cool. That is beyond what we can sort of imagine. All right. So really, really think about that this Christmas season. What does that mean? Now, at the beginning of the session, I mentioned we were going to talk about two things, and we did mention that certainly Jesus was born to very humble parents, and we've mentioned that before in other sessions. The other thing I mentioned was that there was no room at the inn when Jesus was born. And when I think about Advent each year and that time of anticipation and preparation, I think about what I have to do to make room for Jesus in my own life, right? This is sort of a part of the story, that sometimes we can overlook. There was no room at the inn, but guess what? We are the inn. We are the place for Jesus. All right, that's maybe a little bit of a tricky concept. But remember that Jesus lives in our hearts. So are we making room for Jesus? That's something that we think about at this time. All right. So where do we make room for Jesus in our lives?
When we go to church.
When we go to church.
When you watch or we do these videos.
Mm-hmm. When you talk and learn about Jesus, when you read stories, right? What other times can we make room for Jesus in our lives?
Anytime.
Anytime. That's right. Anytime we can make room for Jesus in our lives, no matter what we are doing. So if you are at school or at work, can you make room for Jesus?
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm not talking about, anything even controversial like school prayer or anything like that. I'm talking about, when you're at school, how would you make room for Jesus?
You just take a couple seconds to pray.
You can pray. That's right. On your own. What else can you do?
I don't know.
Can you love your neighbor at school?
Yeah.
And at work? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right? So that is making room for Jesus when we obey those commands. What about, is there room for Jesus when you're out and about, when you are maybe out shopping or at sports or dance or music, when you're doing sort of fun things, a day at the beach? Is there room for Jesus on the Jersey Shore?
Yeah.
How so?
You just take a couple seconds to do it.
Take a couple seconds?
Yeah.
It's just in us and in our behavior, right? When we make room for Jesus, we are certainly active in prayer, and that can sort of, on and off throughout the day. It's in how we interact with each other. Do we love our neighbors? Do we treat them with respect? All right. When we're out, let's say you're at the Jersey Shore, and it's just such a beautiful day, and the sun is out, and it's just gorgeous. Can you stop and say, thank you, God?
Yeah, you can.
Right? So we can stop and do that all the time. We can make room for Jesus in our lives, no matter where we are. What about at home? What are some things at home you can do to make room for Jesus?
You can, you can do it really anytime. Like, you could just take a couple seconds, like I said, for the beach.
Mm-hmm. So you can do all of this at home, too. That's a great place to make room for Jesus. And so, let's see, in our home, certainly we have prayer, right? Mm-hmm. We do seasonal things like we've been talking about. We've talked about the Advent wreaths, the Jessie tree, which has been really cool to learn about. We'll talk about another faith at home thing today. So, we have conversations in which we talk about Jesus. We learn about Jesus. All right. We treat each other respectfully and with love. Those are all making room for Jesus. We help others. Right? Those are things we can all do to make room for Jesus. So when we hear this story, when we hear no room at the inn, think about where we're making room for Jesus during this time.
Oh,
All right. And that's something we do all year long, but sometimes we need a sort of yearly reminder to sweep out, the cobwebs and make a fresh start. All right. So that's a big thing to think about. So you could spend a lot of time doing that, but you can all, both adults and kids at home, can think about how to make room for Jesus in their lives. All right. So for our activity today, this is the fourth Sunday in Advent. As I said, we've done Advent wreaths, we've done Advent calendars, we've done the Jesse tree last week. Today is Nativity Scenes. All right, so I have 3 different Nativity scenes to talk to you about. All right, and as we talked about, Nativity is having to do with being born. So a Nativity scene, and you see it all over the place on, maybe Christmas cards. You may have one already at home. But it's the sort of scene of Jesus's birth. So maybe a stable, Mary, Joseph, the baby Jesus. Maybe you have a bigger one with shepherds and maybe even the 3 kings. All right, so it's made up of these figures who are present at Jesus's birth or shortly after. So some families have really sort of fancy nativity scenes that have been passed down, as family heirlooms, which is really beautiful and great. And so in my family, from my grandmother, when I was younger, her church took a trip to the Holy Land, and she came back with this carved olive wood nativity scene, and this is the camel that goes with the 3 kings, and I've always kind of liked him because he's very ornate. All right, so that's my camel, and we keep the wooden scene set up back here. And the one thing you'll notice is right now there's not yet a baby Jesus because Christmas isn't quite here, and so I keep the baby Jesus. He's got a little wrap, and he actually goes in safely in the drawer until it's time, and then on Christmas Day, Jesus goes into the nativity scene, right, on his birthday. So at home, my parents keep Jesus, he's nicely in a little bowl of lavender, which is a beautiful and fragrant way to keep that. So Matthew has a set here. This is a Playmobil set, so it's plastic, and it's great to play with. So if you have a fancy set at home, or a sort of nicer set, that is wonderful. But I really recommend getting a set that kids can play with because it really involves them in the story. And I mean, even still, it really is a way to engage them in the story. So see if you can get a play set as well as a decorative set at home. So this is Playmobil, so it's plastic. And you can get that, and they have 2 sets. There's the nativity scene, and it actually came with a big sort of stable, which I didn't put up, but it also has the 3 kings set, which is great. Another set, which is really cool, and I have both of these linked on the Sunday School website, which is stpetersfreehold.org/Sunday School. This is a printable paper nativity scene. So it's on 3 sheets of paper. You can print out on your computer and color. So I spent some time sort of coloring that earlier. And it is, let's see, we've got little shepherds, all right, who can stand up, and a sheep. I don't know if you can see the little sheep. Everybody sort of got jumbled up. So here's Mary and little Jesus and Joseph and there goes my stable, and the donkey. All right, and then we also have our 3 kings and their camel, and we even have an angel. So it's just, paper that you cut out and fold. Yep. And so that is a great way. I mean, you could recreate that every single year. All right. So, but that is also fun to play with. Now, a neat thing. All right. So we keep the baby Jesus maybe safe until Christmas, and you can put him out at Christmas time. Another thing we do is our wise men, which are right here, they're not with the rest of the scene just yet. We actually keep them, I have a windowsill up on my landing upstairs. And so the wise men are apart because they are not there yet. When do the wise men arrive? Do you remember?
Christmas. No, after Christmas.
After Christmas.
I don't know.
12 days after Christmas.
That's why it's the 12 days of Christmas.
That's why it's the 12 days of Christmas. The 12 days of Christmas are after Christmas, and they lead up to a holiday that starts with an E called
Epiphany.
Epiphany.
Yes.
All right. Epiphany is when the three kings or the wise men or the magi arrive on the scene. So they can journey
6th.
around your house during this time period, but not quite reaching their goal until January 6th. So there is a lot of fun you can have with a nativity set in your house. A lot of learning and engagement. So it is a really great thing to have. And a lot of people, you got to be careful because you could start collecting them if you're not careful. So because they are fun to collect, and some people even have them outside in their yard. So keep that in mind. All right, as a neat way, Faith at Home. It engages all ages. It's a great way for kids especially, but also adults to interact with this story. All right, and don't forget the wise men aren't here yet either. They can be moving around your whole house. They could be in a different place every day, but not quite to their destination. And then I'll be honest, most of my Christmas decorations are, put away at Epiphany, except for I do leave my nativity set out, usually till close to Lent is when it goes away, because we want the three kings to get to spend time. That's right, with Jesus. All right. So thank you so much for coming to Sunday School today. As always, it has been such a treat and such a blessing to share this time together. If you are looking for more resources, you can visit the Diocese of New Jersey's website under Ministry Resources, and we have also a link to resources on our church website, which is stpetersfreehold.org/Advent in this instance. So anyway, I hope you all have a great holiday season, a great Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I know it's still Advent 4, but it's right around the corner, and so I hope everyone is safe and healthy at home. So our closing prayer is short and sweet today. All right, so you ready? Thank you, God, for Jesus. Help us to celebrate his birth a little every day. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Bye, everyone.